We're fortunate today that we have three of our candidates for U.S. Senate here with us today. And I'd like to begin with and introduce Rob Maness. His life has been one of dedicated service to the nation. The third son of Master Sergeant Billy and Lenny Maness, Rob and his three brothers grew up moving around the country and the world as their dad served in the United States Air Force. Rob experienced many cultures and came to realize how blessed he was to be an American. In this, he came to understand why our individual rights must be protected. Colonel Maness made the decision as a 17-year-old high school senior to enlist in the Air Force and served in the midst of the Iranian hostage crisis. He worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel. During his military service, he retired from active duty in 2011, ending his military service of more than 30 years. Rob and wife Candy came back to Louisiana to continue raising their family, where he had spent much of his military career. Prior to the Senate campaign, Colonel Maness worked in the utility industry as a director residing in Madisonville, Louisiana. During his military service, Colonel Maness led numerous combat operations, two of which were as a bomber squadron commander in Operations Enduring Freedom and Iraqi Freedom. Colonel Maness served as an enlisted bomb disposal technician in 3 assignments countering terrorism before being commissioned and selected for flight training. As a Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, he was on duty in the National Military Command Center located within the Pentagon during the September 11, 2001 attacks. In the ensuing months, he directly assisted the United States National Security Team in creating, synchronizing, and executing the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. His combat decorations include the Bronze Star and Air Medal. Rob has proven his competence at the local, state, and federal levels of government with his demonstrated leadership and effectiveness as a steward of citizens' tax dollars. He has gained a unique insight into the government through his broad experience in concerns to the national budget process and through his direct executive oversight of local schools and coordinations with elected school boards, where he worked to make them secure and more effective in order to meet the needs of Americans' military children. His leadership and combat experience gleaned over 30 years of military service provides Maness with an invaluable perspective when considering national actions and their resulting impacts on our country's family. Help me welcoming Colonel Rob Maness.
Thank you. Thank you for that kind welcome. Thank you for inviting us here today, Senator Landrieu, Senator Vitter, Congressman Cassidy. Thank you all for being here today. Well, there's two things unusual with this one. Normally, I'm only talking to about 50 folks in one of my town halls, so it's amazing to see this crowd out here. And usually I'm going last because I'm junior on this stage up here, but I appreciate y'all giving me this opportunity, and I appreciate everybody in this room's service to this nation and this state of Louisiana, the greatest state in the United States of America. As I said, I'm used to shaking hands and talking to people face to face when we're hosting our Solutions for Us town halls. And of course, we are in the 21st century, so Solutions for Us is a hashtag, Solutions for Us, on Facebook and Twitter, with groups of 50 to 60 people and maybe a little more, because we deserve candidates and elected officials that will come to us, listen to us, answer our questions, and ask for our votes. That's what our campaign is doing, meeting the people. Our goal is to reach everyone, regardless of age, gender, race, economic status, or political affiliation. And it's not easy on this old colonel, putting 60,000 miles on the truck, and definitely not easy on my old back. But we've traveled all 64 parishes in this campaign to meet the folks, and the voters really appreciate it. And the truth is, you see amazing things in Louisiana, even outside of New Orleans and Baton Rouge. Things like the Chickadilly in Haynesville, up north in Claiborne Parish. This particular Chickadilly I had lunch at faced a fierce competition from the giant Sonic drive-in chain. Sonic has over 3,500 locations in the over 44 states, and there are just 7 Chickadillys. But when I visited with the owner and his small group of employees in their little building up there, you could see the bigger Sonic across the street shuttered. Because this Chickadilly is just one of the thousands of examples of small Louisiana enterprises that took on larger, better funded competitors and won. Because they were more in tune with the people. You see places like the Cameron LNG facility, liquefied natural gas, over in Cameron Parish. It only has 2 restaurants nearby. And you're asking yourself, did this guy just eat in all 64 parishes? Well, of course I did. We have the best food industry in the entire world, let alone the United States. But the point is, the federal government couldn't get approval for the Cameron LNG facility to become an export facility for far too long. And now that function won't be operational until 2008. More jobs at that plant will cause more restaurants to pop up and more jobs with those restaurants. But that could have happened long ago in Cameron. Cameron Parish's population has dropped by almost 1/3. They need jobs. And they weren't able to start this new project until an election year. And the people I talk to, us, out there on the road, they say that's wrong. You know, I get asked this question most often. Why in the heck are you punishing yourself by running for political office? And I know at least about 1,200 people in here know exactly what that means. I also hear it every morning from my wife, Candy. Well, I served for 32 years in the U.S. Air Force, and we're not going to go into that bio. But I swore to defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I've served in combat. I've had the honor and privilege of leading young American men and women in combat, all volunteers. I was in the Pentagon on 9/11. I've been the equivalent of a 23,000-person city with my own law enforcement, utility business, including a couple of nuclear reactors. I've been in the private sector in the utility business, and I understand natural gas and why that prices being so low is causing places like the Haynesville Shale to be dormant, and all the small businesses, more importantly, to be dormant up there, and those folks having to go other places to find jobs. But the bottom line answer is, I have a 2-year-old grandson named Kellen, and he deserves to inherit the United States of America, not the United States of something else. And I served too long for this nation's military, and all of these men and women over hundreds of years that have served in offices and in uniform deserve for us to stand up. And we need to change today's status quo in Washington, D.C. You see it broken every day. We go to crisis from crisis to crisis. Immigration. Border crisis. And I thank those that are trying to do something in this room to address that crisis immediately. Out of control spending, out of control debt at crisis levels, government growth out of control, our liberties under assault, IRS, NSA, EPA, you name the alphabet agency, and they're assaulting Americans' freedoms. Freedom is what made this country the shining city on the hill that you've heard presidents talk about. And freedom is what makes this country the beacon of liberty to all those oppressed people around the world that do everything they can to get here, and we need to make sure it exists for our grandchildren. But Washington won't fix itself. The people who've been there for too long are part of the establishment and cannot police themselves. In fact, until we replace them, we need to police them. That's why I appreciate Governor Jindal joining other governors in demanding answers about the over 1,000 unaccompanied illegal alien children that have been deposited here in the state of Louisiana without our knowledge. Our campaign is one built on ideas, though, and solutions. That's what we so desperately need. I will continue publishing plans with positive solutions. Those 50 town halls have been releasing positive plans. I began them by releasing my contract with Louisiana to help Louisiana citizens hold me accountable. Here's a few highlights. I'll follow the Constitution as my guide in all I do, and in every vote I cast, and that means I'll read every single bill or I can't keep that contract. During my first hour in office, I'll pop the door off the hinges. Too many crooked deals happen behind closed doors in our nation's capital. And I'll maintain that office as an open office for Louisianans first, not lobbyists. I'll visit every parish every year. And believe me, my back will tell you, if it could talk, I know what that means to say that. I won't become a career politician and limit myself to 2 terms and work for term limits to be installed in law. And I'll be an independent conservative voice for Louisiana, not beholden to a party machine or leaders or other special interest other than one, the people of Louisiana and the policies of the United States of America and the Constitution. And finally, I'll never ask you to put your faith in me. That's for Almighty God, not politicians. I want you to hold me accountable. That's why we're holding these town halls, to discuss the future of our country. That's what we need, discussions, not debates. This contract is just one of the positive solutions of our nation's problems. We propose to promote respect for life with our Life for Louisiana plan, and to get more resources meant for our veterans into their hands with our Freedom for Veterans plan. We need faster, more effective hurricane relief that doesn't include millions for indoor rainforests in Iowa. We need that money here. We don't need other senators to get that money and put pork in disaster relief bills, so we need a change. And I think that's part of the reason why Washington is broken, because we don't spend enough time having real, robust conversations. Louisianans want us, those of us up here especially in this campaign, to talk about our differences in public. They want to talk about it with us directly so they know the options in November. And that's why I'm calling on my friends up here, some people may call them my opponents, to make a commitment to engage in as many public debates and forums, like we're doing today, as possible between now and November. I've accepted more than a dozen already. I think the count's up to 18. I'm starting to question my campaign manager. They want to see us in real life defending our ideas and records, not just be talked to on television or radio. They want solutions to our problems, not carefully crafted talking points. These aren't red states or blue state ideas after 32 years in the Air Force, soaring over our fruited plains and purple mountains' majesty. I see that there are no red states and blue states, only the United States of America, and our people below, including all of us, just want the best nation possible for our children and grandchildren. Thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation to come speak to you all today. I honor your service and sacrifice for this state, and I'll hang around and be able to answer questions at the end of this. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Colonel Maness. Our next speaker is Congressman Bill Cassidy. He's a lifelong public servant. He is a physician, a teacher, a community leader, father, and husband. As an associate professor of medicine with Louisiana State University, Bill has provided care for uninsured patients and taught doctors in training at E.A. Curl Long Hospital in Baton Rouge for the last 20 years. Bill co-founded the Greater Baton Rouge Community Clinic, a clinic providing free dental and health care to the working uninsured. Bill also created a private-public partnership to vaccinate 36,000 Greater Baton Rouge area children against hepatitis B at no cost to the schools or parents. In the wake of Hurricane Katrina, Bill led a group of health volunteers to convert an abandoned Kmart building into an emergency health care facility, providing basic health care to hurricane evacuees. Before his election to serve Louisiana's 6th District in the U.S. House of Representatives, Bill served in the Louisiana State Senate. In the House, Bill serves on the Energy and Commerce Committee and its subcommittees on health, energy and power, and environment, and the economy. He serves as an assistant whip for the House Republican Conference. His legislative focus is health care and energy. Help me welcome United States Congressman Bill Cassidy.
Thank you. Thank you all for many things. One, thank you for inviting me. Secondly, thank you for your service. I heard in a meeting like this once that if the president is the head of all government, you are the fingertips, touching people in their daily lives far more than someone in Washington does or someone in the state legislature in Baton Rouge. And I also thank you for your optimism. I'm sitting next to Clarence Field, who is talking about how Pineville would be better than it once was. So thank you, because each of you imagines a better future for the community that you serve. Now I'm running for the U.S. Senate. I'm a doctor. My laugh line is I'm a gastroenterologist, and gastroenterology prepared me very well for Washington, D.C. And I've been teaching in LSU's public hospital system for the last 25 years. I still see uninsured patients on Tuesdays when I'm in Baton Rouge. That has actually, in all seriousness, helped prepare me for this. Because clearly, I'm running against Senator Landrieu, a great person, wonderful person, and Colonel Maness. And there are real issues here. And this is an incredibly important campaign. Whichever party wins Louisiana, it is thought that party will control the United States Senate. Now, independently of personal views, that one issue almost dominates this election. But there are important issues before us. What are some of the issues? Clearly, the debt and deficit, health care reform, the economy, just to start. Let's speak a little bit about the debt and deficit. In 1965, if this is a pie chart of the federal tax revenue, in 1965, that much went to Medicare, Medicaid, and that much more to Social Security and interest on the debt. 50 years later, over 50% of the budget goes to those four things, and in 25 to 30 years, 100% of federal tax revenue will go to Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and interest on the debt. Everything else is getting crowded out. We speak about cuts at Fort Polk. We speak about those because that spending is getting crowded out. We are losing community block grants. There's not enough money in the transportation fund. All that is being crowded out. Now, I'm a doctor. I've been working in the public hospital system. I know the importance of Medicare and Medicaid. But if those swallow the budget, they will be gone too. When Medicare runs out of money, the doctor you see will be paid only what is coming in, which is to say she'll be paid less than her cost, which is to say you may no longer have access to your physician. It is incredibly important that we get this right, which leads us naturally into the next issue that we're facing. Healthcare, the President's Healthcare Law, the Affordable Care Act. Most folks, including the President, call it Obamacare. I disagree with Senator Landrieu on this issue, and I disagree coming from my experience working in the public hospital system. I have found that if a bureaucrat controls the system, the system lines up to serve the bureaucrat. But if the patient controls the system lines up to serve the patient. The Veterans Administration Hospital, unfortunately, is a great example of this, where veterans denied care, allegedly dying prematurely, but secret lists kept so that administrators could continue to get their bonuses. That is what happens when the patient does not have control. Now, I can tell you, this health care law, which is passed, Obamacare, if you will, is dictated to the patient what she shall buy. It is dictated to her, therefore, how much she must spend. And the promise that you could keep your doctor or your insurance plan or your hospital if you wish to was false. We can do better than that. And there's several Republican health care plans which have been introduced, which do better than that by giving advanceable refundable tax credits to the individual, kind of a technical term. What it is to say is that the patient can truly choose the benefits which she chooses to have. She can decide what is best for her family. And then lastly, the economy. Now, I'm an optimist. I'm like Clarence Field. I think our country can be better off than it is now. But the way we need to have the economy doing better than it is now. This state understands that the oil and gas economy is one thing that surefire can create great jobs for working people. And I think all the candidates running for this office understand that. But what is a little different from here and Washington is that here we are Republicans, Democrats, and Independents. We don't care. In Washington, it is more of a team sport. So Senator Harry Reid will not bring up the Keystone XL pipeline for a vote, even though it'll create 40,000 good jobs with good benefits for hardworking Americans who right now need those jobs. And again, I admire Senator Landrieu. She said that she would make that a priority, but Senator Reid will not bring it up. LNG exports. You know, Australia has permitted 7 different LNG export terminals, and we've permitted 1. And recent regulations proposed by the administration are going to tie it up potentially in more red tape as they've invited environmental groups to participate in their approval process. We should be rolling out the red carpet for these projects with the tens of thousands of good construction jobs they create instead of the red tape, which has resulted in only 1 being permitted so far. Now, I mentioned at the outset, if I win, Republicans will control the Senate. There will then be a Senate Majority Leader who will actually work for the Keystone XL pipeline, work for the construction of these LNG export terminals, and work for the economic growth that those bring. But you want a senator, by the way, who is not just a senator, not just with good ideas, but one who is effective. Let me praise you, but thank you for a partnership that we had recently in terms of the National Flood Insurance Program. Huge issue. We know that Biggert Waters was being implemented as part of the National Flood Insurance Program in such a way that folks who had never flooded were seeing their premiums rise by $10,000 to $20,000 a year. Never flooded, and their premiums going up to $10,000 to $20,000. When I listened and heard this from you and from your constituents, our constituents, the first amendment that passed to delay these premium increases was the Cassidy Amendment. Senator Landrieu was nice enough to use that exact same language on the Senate side so that when it came to conference, it was able to go through and delayed premium increases for, a year and a half. But as I continued to listen, you couldn't sell a home. If it was just a delay, you didn't know if your premium might go up to $20,000 in 4 years, and so therefore no one could sell their home. Municipal officials were saying our tax base is about to crater. If the assessor is going to say because you sell your home at a lower cost, therefore your assessment is less, our tax base is going to evaporate. There was 2 laws that came up. Again, Senator Landrieu had one, I had another, or I think technically Senator Landrieu's colleagues. And the Senate bill was a good bill, but again, it only delayed the premium increases, and that I understood from you was not good enough. So what passed on the House side, it's called the Grimm-Cassidy Amendment, permanently repeals those portions which were most damaging to our homeowners and to our local economies. Permanently repealed. Now, in this dysfunctional Congress, we were able to get good legislation with House Republicans, House Democrats, Senate Democrats who left their own bill on the shelf when they saw ours was better, heard FEMA, they signed off, and the President signed it into law. Truly a team effort of you passing on the information that we needed in order to come up with a better law to serve our constituents more effectively. Lastly, I will say another important thing that we should look for in a public servant is something which I think each of you embodies. Scripture tells us, Mark 10:42 through 45, Jesus says, lordly masters expect to be served, but in God's reckoning, he who desires to lead must be a servant, and he who desires to be first must be a slave. And goes on to say that even the Son of Man gave his life as a ransom for all. I will tell you, I want to be your greatest public servant, which is to say that I want to be your servant as you serve our mutual constituents. Whoever is in Washington, I'll echo what Colonel Maness said, should not be your Lord and master or Lord and mistress, should be your servant, because you are the fingertips of government touching lives far more than we. And with that, the degree that we enable you is the degree that we serve those whom we are both so privileged to serve. I'll finish by saying once more, whoever wins this race, it is thought that that party will control the U.S. Senate. If you feel like the direction of the country is going well now, and frankly, Senator Landrieu is probably the person that you should support. But if you think, wait a second, our economy's not doing well, my health care premiums are sky high, I'm having to lay people off or reduce their hours in order to afford those premiums. We could have a better economy if we could get things such as Keystone XL built, or if we could get those LNG export terminals processed more quickly, then I may be your candidate. And this is not just a personal decision, it is a decision for all time. Imagine in a story in 100 years from now, she is going to write, in 2014, the direction of the country was determined by a race in Louisiana. And the country decided either to continue to go in one direction, because Senator Landrieu was reelected, or the country decided to begin to go in a different direction, because you elected Bill Cassidy. Now, if I'm elected, I cannot do it on my own, nor with my wife, who's incredibly talented, but only with your help. And if we do it, the historian will write, the country changed, the result was better, and they will list my name, my wife's name, but they will also list your name, because the future of the country is all of our responsibilities. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Cassidy. Our last speaker is our current U.S. Senator, Mary Landrieu. U.S. Senator Mary Landrieu has dedicated her life to serving Louisiana and helping build a prosperous future that Louisiana families, small business, and seniors can count on. After serving 8 years in the Louisiana State Legislature and 2 terms as Louisiana State Treasurer, Senator Landrieu became the first woman elected from Louisiana to a full term in the U.S. Senate. In the Senate, Senator Landrieu has been the leading voice to secure Louisiana's fair share of offshore energy production revenue to rebuild its coast and to make flood insurance affordable. Senator Landrieu fought a nearly 10-year bruising battle to establish revenue sharing for energy-producing states in the Gulf so Louisiana can restore and protect our coast. The bill, Gulf of Mexico Energy Security Act, also opened up 8.3 million new offshore acres to oil and gas production for the first time in over 25 years. Senator Landrieu led the successful effort to pass the Restore Act that directs 80% of the billions BP faces in fines back to the 5 Gulf Coast states for environmental and economic recovery. Just as Louisiana was recovering from the BP oil spill, Congress passed the Biggers Waters flood insurance bill over Senator Landrieu's objection. That bill began drastically raising flood insurance rates for the communities in Louisiana and across the country. She built a geographically broad and bipartisan coalition in the Senate to support legislation that would stop the rate increase and make sure that FEMA's flood maps accurately reflect the true risk on the ground. Senator Landrieu delivers for Louisiana as chair of both the Senate Committee on Energy and Natural Resources and the Senate Appropriations Homeland Security Subcommittee, as well as a member of the Small Business and Homeland Security Committees. Senator Landrieu is only the second Louisianan and the first woman to ever chair the Energy Committee. Senator Landrieu also has pushed for a comprehensive energy policy in the U.S. Senate to achieve U.S. energy independence. Senator Landrieu has been a leading voice in Washington for the Gulf Coast recovery effort in the wake of Hurricanes Katrina and Rita and the failures of the federal levee system. She secured more than $120 billion in recovery dollars for the Gulf Coast and worked extensively to jumpstart recovery projects. Last year, she ushered through reforms to the Federal Emergency Management Agency to ensure the nation's disaster response arm is speedy and effective the next time a disaster strikes, whether natural or man-made. In early 2013, she passed legislation that has led to the cancellation of over $230 million in loans from Hurricane Katrina for St. Tammany, Jefferson, Washington, and Orleans parishes. Help me in welcoming United States Senator Mary Landrieu.
Thank you, Vernon, so much, and thank you for your leadership of this wonderful organization that has been doing excellent work for many years, through many decades. I also want to thank Mayor Cormedel, Carol Breaux, the upcoming board of the LMA, and I look forward to continuing to work with all of you as I have so closely the last several years. I particularly want to congratulate Ronnie Harris, who's our new executive director. He's been a member, of course, as a longstanding mayor of Gretna, very effective, very innovative, and I know he's going to do a great job for the association. I want to recognize my colleague, Senator Vitter, thank him for his partnership on many issues and his work, my colleague, Bill Cassidy. And I do want to say to Colonel Manis how much we all appreciate your service in the Air Force. 32 years of serving our country in uniform is most certainly not easy, and you have an outstanding record. Let's give him a round of applause. I know our time is short, so I just want to hit just a few points. First of all, this race for re-election to the United States Senate, I believe, and I think you all share this, is about leadership. It's about effective leadership. It's about working across party lines, which we all do, all day, every day, particularly in the LMA. Mayors that are here and your council members and your chiefs, appointed or elected, or the other local elected officials in your cities and parishes have to work across party lines to get things done. That's what I have done for 18 years in the United States Senate, and with your blessing and your vote will continue to do. Representative Cassidy talked about flood insurance. Let me underscore a few things. The Louisiana delegation actually led the entire nation to reform a flood insurance program that was going to be extremely detrimental to our state. We are not the only state that was at the point of the spear. We have 450,000 policies in Louisiana. Texas has 750,000, and Florida has 1.7 million, and other states around the nation. But because of a flawed law that Congress passed, our rates in Louisiana were going to go up, in some cases, from $300 a year to $30,000 a year, and put middle-class families in all of our communities at great risk. I led the effort in the Senate first to have to go find a Republican leader in Johnny Isakson from Georgia, and then went to the committee that passed it 2 years ago and had to explain to them they made a tragic mistake, which they didn't want to believe, and then convince them to basically rewrite it. No one wanted to help us. No one. Not the Democratic leadership, not the Republican leadership. But our delegation stood together, shoulder to shoulder, and with you and our parish presidents and our mayors that said, look, we cannot pay $20,000 a year, $10,000 a year, $5,000 a year. People in Washington said, why do you live there? Why do you live on the coast? I said, well, one of the reasons we live in Louisiana is to run the greatest river system in North America. One of the reasons we live there is because we've been living there for 300 years. New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Natchitoches, just to name a few of our cities that are just about 300 years old. We didn't just move here 2 decades ago to sunbathe, and we're not down here vacationing. And so we decided, and our delegation, with your help, and I cannot say enough about the local officials, with your parish presidents, a shout out to the police jury, NACO stepped up, mayors all over this country, and we got it done. It was not easy, but I helped and led that bill with 72 votes out of the Senate. You can't get a resolution to honor Mother's Day out of the Senate these days, but we passed flood insurance and then sent it to the House for their good work. Number 2, I could not be prouder, and our delegation is so proud of the military installations in our state. From Fort Polk in central Louisiana, that is the finest integrated joint training facility in the country, to Barksdale Air Force Base in North Louisiana, which is home of the B-52 and the first female general of a bomber fighter wing who was just commissioned just this weekend. I'm anxious to meet her. To Belle Chase Air Force Base, to our federal city, home of the Coast Guard and the Marine Reserve, we are proud. Fort Polk came very close to a closure, and that threat is still over us today. But I helped as the senior member of our delegation to encourage the central Louisiana leadership, went to the mayors, bankers, community leaders, without regard to party, in Leesville, in Manny, in DeRidder, in Alexandria, and said, let's get together and create Fort Polk Progress, which we did. We formed a great coalition. Mike Reese leads that coalition. And not only did we save Fort Polk, which we have to be diligent and continue to work on, but our Fort Polk Progress in this room, leaders in central Louisiana sent more letters of support to the Pentagon, 4,500 to be clear, than all the other communities in the nation. Give yourselves a round of applause. Just this weekend, Fort Polk, and one of the reasons I served on the subcommittee that is invested at my request through earmarks and also just effective leadership, invested over $500 million of improvements at Fort Polk over the last 18 years because I sit on the committee, military construction. But I also went to the community and said, listen, I can't, by earmarking, build you the new schools that you need, but military families want and deserve the best schools in the world for their children. Every military person I've ever talked with, man or woman, has said, look, I'm happy to serve, put me on the front line, just take care of my wife or my spouse and my children. So I do that to the best of my ability with you all. Just Friday, Fort Polk was designated, and Vernon Parish, and I want the officials from Vernon to stand up, and Beauregard, the best school in the United States of America. Would you all stand up? An extraordinary, they just won the 2014 Pete Taylor Excellence Award for their efforts to provide good schools for military families. And I work with all of you, as you all know, for education around the state. One bill I just filed, and some of you have experience with this personally, and if not, many of your families or neighbors might. 600,000 people in our state have student loans, outstanding student loans. When you graduate from college these days or from community college, the average debt of students in the country is $27,000. Louisiana, our debt is $22,000. It's still high, below the national average, but it's still a great concern to parents and to students themselves trying to get education. The federal government is preventing right now those student loans, the interest on those student loans, from being refinanced. So you can refinance your home, you can refinance your car, you can refinance your credit card debt, get a lower interest rate, but you can't right now refund those student loans. I filed a bill a few months ago, we've been working on it for many years now, to get those loans refinanced. It will save thousands of dollars for every person in the state that has outstanding student debt. We need to get kids through college and ourselves better education with dreams, not debt, when we finish, and I want to work with you on that. Two more issues very closely. I can't sit next to David Carmadel, who's an outstanding leader for this organization and mayor of Grand Isle, without sharing with you just a minute about coastal restoration. It has been with you my signature effort since I've been a member of the Senate. I was horrified when I was first elected to find out that Western states get to keep 50% of the revenues from drilling oil and gas on their land. And they keep 50%. So Wyoming, a state with 450,000 people, keeps $1 billion every year, and they send $1 billion to the federal government. They produce about $2 billion on federal land in Wyoming. We have 4.5 million people approximately. We produce off of our shore. You can stand on the island and the beach of Grand Isle, which I've done many times with David Carmadel, and look out and see those rigs off of our shore, off of Port Fourchon, off of Iberia Coast, off of St. Mary and Cameron. We produce $9 billion for the federal government, and until I got to Washington and passed GOMESA, Gulf of Mexico Energy Security Act, which is passed and the law, Louisiana had not received a penny of revenue from that $9 billion. Now we're getting our share. We are going to lift the cap. We're going to accelerate the payments, but Louisiana has already received $30 million, and soon, under the law, already passed, we will get $500 million to the Gulf Coast for the first time in the history of our country. And I don't want to leave out North Louisiana, so let me just say a brief word. Just this year, after a 4-year battle, Poverty Point, which is one of the most historic sites in the world, which sits up by Monroe, Tallulah, and Rayville, and you all know the area well. After fighting for over 25 years, Poverty Point, which is 3,500 years old, one of the most historic sites in the world, was just designated a World Heritage Site. That took effort, leadership, persistence, and tenacity, and I'll tell you why. Because the federal government had refused to pay dues to the organization that makes the designation. And we could not, because of other issues completely unrelated to us, get that dues paid. Did that stop me? Did that stop our delegation? Did that stop Lieutenant Governor Jay Darden, who helped lead this fight with me, Republican and Democrat? No. We just kept working it, sent a delegate to the conference, even without our dues being paid. I wrote in, was able to, as chair of the Committee on Appropriations, an exception for Poverty Point to be designated. It is only one of 27 sites in the country, in the history of our country, to be designated, and the only site in the United States this year in the world designated. Let's give ourselves a round of applause. And finally, I will end with this. I do think leadership matters. I think you all believe that as well, because you're all leaders of your cities. If you didn't, you wouldn't run. But leadership does matter. The kind of leadership that can work across party lines for the benefit of the people, that can be tenacious and tough and strong and effective and deliver. I do have clout in the United States Senate. 18 years. The way you get it is to stay there. You can't buy it. It's not given to you. You have to earn it. But that clout is not my clout. It's yours. You earned it. We earned it together. 18 years of standing in line to wait to become the chair of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee at a time when America is poised for the first time in our history to become energy self-sufficient. We don't need to rely on Saudi Arabia or Venezuela or Russia. Thank God we have our own supplies of oil and gas. I support the Keystone Pipeline, moved it out of my committee. I helped pass the first two permits for Sempra and Cheniere, and just Freeport was permitted this week. I am pushing the Secretary of Energy to do that and look forward to leading the nation when it comes to Louisiana being in the forefront and the Gulf Coast, both north and south and central, to be the energy powerhouse that we can be. The Ambassador of Canada has been in my office, the Ambassador of Mexico. We are going to take advantage of this moment to build great jobs for all of our people, close the skills gap, build a middle class. Leadership matters. It's your clout. Let's not give it up. God bless you all.
My message here today is that the people are looking for solutions, and that's why we're doing our One of Us town hall, or Solutions for Us town hall tour around the state. We've done 10, and we've got 40 more town halls to do to continue to carry our message and our positive solutions for Louisiana.
This Senate election is incredibly important in helping to determine the future of our country. Frankly, I think I'm running because I think we have better ideas. Better ideas in healthcare, better ideas in the economy, better ideas in how we relate to Washington, D.C. I'm anticipating those better ideas winning.
The race for the Senate is very important. That's part of my message, and also that leadership matters. And Louisiana has clout in Washington. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the people of Louisiana. We've earned it together, and we should not give it up lightly. And chairing the Energy Committee right at a point in our nation's history which is unique, exciting, and unusual, where we're going to find over 200 years of natural gas. We'll turn our import strategy into an export strategy, creating jobs right here at home. I mean, this is not the time to give up that Energy Committee chairmanship.